What is up, guys? Ken here with Hobby Harvest. Today I want to talk to you about micro parcel habitat strategy. So not all of us own hundreds of acres of land. So this video is for those of you trying to make something out of acreage as small as 5, even down to 1 acre. You can improve it and still have a successful hunt. But how do we do that? So the first thing is you need to talk to your neighbors. Surprising, right? When you're working with a small piece of property, chances are you're going to have run-ins with your neighbors a lot more often. And you want to preempt that and get ahead of that by talking to them and having a good relationship with them. Now, you want to do this for several reasons. Now, probably most importantly is if you're hunting on a small parcel, the chances that you're going to need to retrieve game from their property at some point is very high. So you want to make sure that you have open permission to do that if need be. Now, the other reason why you want to talk to your neighbors is because they own their land for a reason too, and it's good to know what their goals of their land is. So you may have a neighbor who loves to ride dirt bikes on their land. And if that's the case, that's fine, but you're not going to want to go out and set aside time to sit on your property hunting if your neighbor is going to be riding dirt bikes that day. So it's a good idea to have an open line of communication with your neighbor so that you can coordinate your use of your land versus what they plan on using their land for on any given time. And you can't get too upset with what they want to use their land for, just like they can't get too upset with what you want to use yours for. But it's just very neighborly to coordinate the use so you guys aren't infringing on each other's enjoyment of the use of your own property. Now, another reason why you're going to want to talk to your neighbors is if you explain what you're trying to do on your property, that you're trying to improve the habitat for all of the wildlife in the area, they may really like that you're doing that, and they may even give you permission to do that on parts of their land, which can help you have a successful hunt on your land. So what they may let you do is cut travel corridors into their land, put trail cameras out on their land, plant trees or shrubs on their land. Who knows? They may even let you put a food plot on their land, may let you hunt on their land. So it doesn't hurt to ask them and just get an idea of what they intend to use their land for. Let them know what you're doing with yours, and it can only be better for you. Now, if your neighbor is also a hunter, that's also not 100% a bad thing, because like I said about the dirt bike thing, well, you know they're not going to be out riding dirt bikes in the middle of the rut. So you at least know that during peak hunting season, you're going to have a like-minded neighbor. It's just, yeah, you are competing for the same deer herd, but if you improve the habitat on your land, and maybe you talk them into improving the habitat on their land as well, you're going to end up raising a larger deer herd with more larger bucks, and you'll all enjoy having a more successful hunt by doing that. So it's useful to get an idea of how they intend on using their land to hunt, maybe help teach them things that they can do on their land to also improve the overall quality of the deer herd in the area, and also get an idea of what their overall goals for harvesting on their land are. You may find out that they are a brown it's down neighbor and you're a trophy hunter, and the two of those wouldn't typically go together, but maybe you could persuade them to come closer to your goals, and you don't have to worry about them shooting everything in the area. You can also share trail cam info. So maybe you do have an idea of what's in the area, and you're like, hey, listen, I know you're a brown it's down neighbor, but out of everything I have on camera, I only have a doe family group of 3 and a doe family group of 5. If you could just hold off on shooting does for 1 year and we improve the habitat, we will increase the number of does and bucks in the area, and then you'll have an even better opportunity at harvesting some does as well as more mature bucks. So I've found in the past that a lot of people that do harvest does, they do it because they love venison. Who doesn't, right? But if they had a better opportunity or a more consistent opportunity at harvesting a buck each year, maybe they don't need to shoot as many does or a doe at all, depending on how much venison they eat in a year. So you can really sort of persuade somebody to change their hunting habits by teaching them how to improve the habitat on their land and improving the habitat on your own land to increase the quality of deer herd in the area. And now maybe it is that your neighbor is just a hunter that's going to shoot and fill their buck tag on the first spike that walks underneath them, and that's fine too. Again, it's their land. Let them use it how they want to, but just know also that if they fill their buck tag on a spike, that leaves whatever your goals are still out there in the woods. If your goal is to only shoot the top 20 or 30% of bucks in the area, those are all still out there. So they didn't remove one of those bucks from the herd by filling their tag with that spike. So alright, we've talked to the neighbors, we get an idea of how they're using their land, if they're a hunter, what their goals are. How are we going to want to improve the habitat on this small parcel? Well, when we're considering that, we have to understand that the parcel isn't big enough to give the deer everything they need. So what we need to do on that small parcel is give the deer what they do not have in the area or what they have very little of in the area. So if you're in like a big wood setting or you're in like mixed ag with swamp where the deer have cover and they have ag, you're going to want to put in a food plot. Now a food plot is not an ag field and an ag field is not a food plot, and the deer relate to those two different food sources completely differently and at different times of the day. So a food plot is okay to put in right next to ag. Now, on the other hand, if you have nothing but open ag all over the place with absolutely no cover, you're going to want to create the thickest, densest cover on that small parcel of yours, and you will be shocked at how many deer you will pack into that tiny little parcel when they're trying to get to some cover. So when you have a small parcel, you're relying on the surrounding area to provide the holes in habitat that you're not able to provide on your small parcel. So if you have thick cover around you, that's the bedding. You wouldn't put bedding in on your land. But like I said, if there's no bedding anywhere, you're going to want to create that thick bedding area and then rely on the surrounding ag fields for the food source. Now I'm going to go to the whiteboard and draw up a few quick examples of what this would look like. But first off, I want to thank my subscribers for subscribing. And if you aren't subscribed yet, you feel like you're getting some value from this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more videos like this one. So as we go to the whiteboard, we're going to move into the third thing, and that is screening. Now, regardless of what you do on this small parcel, you're going to want to make sure it is very thickly screened around the perimeter of it. Now, if we're talking about something more like 5 acres, you can maybe switch that screening more around like your food source or something. But if we're talking something as small as 1 acre, you're just going to want to screen the entire perimeter of it because you want your property to be a safe, secure bubble for the deer to come to at any time of the day. So what I would do is completely screen off the edge, and this could be anywhere from 10, 15, 20, 25 feet thick of something like switchgrass. You could also hinge cut in there, anything to get as many stems close to the ground. So when you're out here on the outside perimeter of the property, you cannot see in, and when you're in, you cannot see out. The deer will absolutely love that in any situation, that they have this safe, secure little bubble. Now, in a situation where you're in open ag and there is no cover anywhere whatsoever, this middle area is just more stem count. You're going to want to plant shrubs, you're going to want to hinge cut trees, you're going to want to plant anything that creates as many stems close to the ground as possible so that you can't see more than a couple feet through this small parcel. That is going to create that haven of thick cover where the deer are going to want to come and bed down during the day. Now, this does sort of affect how we're going to hunt a small parcel like this. If you have a thick daytime bedding covered parcel, it is going to be a hunting situation where you can only hunt it in the morning. It's going to be way too difficult to hunt it in the afternoon because the deer will be here already, and if you come in to try to hunt, you're just going to bust all the deer off your parcel and they may not come back. So you'll always want to just get in here, somewhere on one of these edges, but where you can see a decent amount of the property. And you're going to want to wait for those deer to return from the ag field, whatever is in the surrounding area, and have a shot on them when they return to this bedding area during the early morning hours. That's awesome, right? Like, you have this thick cover. Well, how do you put a stand in there? How do you influence where the deer are going to be in there? Well, this is where you can still put travel corridors through here. You can still put things like a mock scrape in here, and I did make a mock scrape video if you don't know what that is, and I'll link it up here for you guys. You can put in water holes, you can put in other attractions. So you should have a decent idea of where the deer are entering and exiting your parcel into the neighboring parcels, depending on what your neighbor's habitat is. And so you can create travel corridors that come into your property from there and put them right to a mock scrape, right to a water hole, right to a stand location. And every deer that comes onto your property should filter right past your stand location, regardless of how thick it is. Now, if we're going to put a food plot on something like this, I would recommend only having about a 1/4 acre of food in a situation like this if you only had an acre. Now, the more acres you have, the more food you can put in, but you don't want a big holding plot, food plot. You want just a small browse plot where the deer are going to come out of your neighbor's property, out of some cover, out of a swamp, out of an ag field, whatever. They're going to pop into this screened area. They're going to hit up that food plot for a little bit before they head off somewhere else. So in that situation, you're only going to want to put in a small plot, and you're going to want that plot to be more like a grazing trail that sort of just filters them through. So imagine almost like a travel corridor or a deer trail that comes through the property, but it's a little widened out and it's got a crop planted in it. And the total surface area is somewhere around a 1/4 acre if we're talking about this being an acre. Even if you had about 5 acres, I would not go with more than an acre of food, and an acre of food on 5 acres is a lot. So you don't need a ton of food when you're doing something on a small parcel like this. You just want that little piece of candy that those deer are going to want to hit up right maybe an hour before dark. They'll slowly graze through it, they'll hang out for a little bit, and then as it gets darker, they'll head out into those more open ag fields. Now, you'll want to surround this food plot though also with some screening from the rest of the property, but screening from your hunter access onto it. And then you're also going to want to put some shrubs in as well for browse and for additional cover. So that's what you're sort of filling the rest of this area in, is also just some thick cover, but you have this open food plot in it. If you guys hunt small parcels, let me know down in the comments how many acres you have and what success you've had on those parcels so far. Now, I have a similar situation like this one right here. I have ag on the one side and I have houses on the other, and I see deer will run straight across that open ag field to get into this safe, secure little bubble right before dark. It's actually funny. They're in such a hurry to get into this safe little secure bubble that you see them run, 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 and as soon as they get in here, they just stop. Like, they got where they are, they feel safe, and they just start grazing right away. It's the craziest thing, but that's what this bubble of cover in a small parcel like this really helps achieve for you. And so, like I said, if this was just solid cover, that would be a morning stand. With a food source like a food plot like this, though, this is an afternoon stand. But I would not expect to see deer in this in the morning. Now, obviously, during the rut when they're moving around at all hours of the day, it's possible. But this would be primarily an afternoon stand only, because they're going to hit up this food plot right before dark, before they head off into the ag field. Now, we should also probably talk about too, like, if you have a small parcel like this, chances are you might be in more of a suburban area. That's why you don't have so many acres. But in a situation like that, where you're in a suburban area, the deer are used to humans more so than deer are in like a wilderness area. So you can get away with giving them this ideal cover in a suburban area, because they're going to see this as ideal habitat that they've never been given in that area before, and it's going to end up being the #1 attraction for them, because the lack of cover, the lack of food in the surrounding area, because of all of the human activity. You give them this 1 acre or more, and it's going to just pay dividends to you on drawing them in because they've never had that experience before. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is like when to hunt. Now, we already talked about hunting at morning versus afternoon, but when you have a small parcel like this, you definitely do not want to overhunt it. So I would highly recommend hunting it just when the weather is perfect. So that would be right after a cold front comes in or right after you had some other severe weather. So if you just had 2 days of rain, of heavy rain, and those deer had to stay bedded down during the rain, and then that rain stops, that's a good time to sit as well, because that's when those deer are going to get up out of their bedding areas and head off to feed, because they maybe skipped a couple meals or they were maybe only feeding on that woody browse that's in their bedding areas for the past several days or however long that weather system was. So those are the days you're going to want to focus on to hunt a small property like this. You definitely do not want to hunt it every day. Anytime you spook deer off of a property like this is a chance that they're not going to come back, or they're not going to come back for a long time. So you always want to be very careful, if all you have to hunt is this small parcel, that you hold that very dearly and are very careful getting in and out of it. You only hunt it when the wind is perfect for where your stand locations are, and you just do not oversit your stand or stands that you have on a property like this. Now, during the rut, yes, you can sit all day. You can take your rutcation and sit all week long if you want, because the deer movement that time of year is just so consistently inconsistent, and that the deer move a lot, but there's no rhyme or reason to when they come through a certain area because they're just out chasing at that time of year. Now, getting back to number one there, you may want to talk to your neighbors and say, hey, I'm taking this week off for my rutcation. Can you please not do dirt bike riding or whatever on your property during that week? I would really appreciate it. And maybe you give them some venison or something as payment for their cooperation in helping you have a successful hunt. All right, guys, I hope this gives you some strategy on how to have a successful hunt on a micro parcel. If you guys enjoyed this video, I'm going to link another one up right here. Go ahead and check that one out. That is how I am renovating my micro parcel this year to create a more advantageous hunt for me this coming hunting season. I'll catch you guys on the next one.